What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video from Pink Tourmaline, but not just any video. We have an interview and an epic interview, to say the least. So this is Rachel Corpus, and this has just been so cool how this has come together. But the way that this began is I made a review of an interview that she had on the Jeff Mara podcast, which I think blew people away. And it was sort of perfect timing when I saw it, because I saw it shortly after I started researching Intuitive Underground's research and data. And they were the first people, at least that I had heard of, that talked about this concept of base reality. Then I saw Rachel Corpus's NDE account on Jeff Mara's podcast, which she's going to go into in a moment. And she saw the same thing. She saw something almost exactly like what Intuitive Underground described. So I reached out on a whim to see if she would even message me back, and she did, and she said she would be willing to come on. So this has just been such a pleasure. And the last thing I'll say, but I'm going to let her take it away in a minute, but the last thing I'll say is, on this entire journey, as we're trying to understand the nature of reality, and we're going through this joint learning and exploration process, because I don't claim to know everything by not by a long shot, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to just talk to as many people as possible and just piece together all the little disparate parts and see if we can start to get a clear picture of what's going on. And I think it's so difficult, potentially by design. There's a lot of misdirection, misinformation, disinformation. But I think if we try our best, we use our discernment, and we just keep listening and piecing together the puzzle pieces, I think we can get there. So anyways, that's what today is. Without further ado, Rachel, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. And let me just turn it over to you first. Just give a little introduction of who you are and the work that you do.
Oh, thank you for asking. First and foremost, I'm a mom. I'm a wife, regular person. My full-time work is I am a psychic, and I say that authentically and a little vulnerably, but I have lived into that label after years of holding it quietly, silently. But before that, I was a teacher, I was a pastor, I've been to seminary, and I've always been a psychic person. And then at one point, I got a call from Source that said, "Hey, girl, just do this, just do it." And so very bravely, I stepped into it. So that's what I do 24/7. I help people honestly remember that they too are psychic, that they are intuitive in their own ways, because we all have these abilities, and that means something different to everybody. So I meet with people one-on-one, I teach classes, and I do it in a way that's not entertainment. I do it in a very gentle, teachable model that helps people, like I said, remember who they are. And that's me.
Go ahead. It's funny because I was just going to ask that, because I've heard other people say that, who do remote viewing, who do OBEs, who have this type of work where they are connecting to some sort of a stream of knowledge or consciousness. And they say pretty much every time, and you said the same thing, it's that we all have this ability locked away somewhere. Maybe we just haven't been able to access it. And I think that message is so important to keep sharing with people, that it's not this person over here doing this amazing work that blows our mind, that is maybe just completely different from us. We all have these abilities, and we're all the same. And I think that's not only is it an empowering message, but I think there's truth behind it. So that's really cool that you said that. I think what people are dying to hear, and what I cannot wait to jump into, I'm just going to kind of cut to the chase. I'd love to hear your NDE account. And again, you shared it on the Jeff Mara podcast, but I'd love to hear it again. And I'm hoping that as you share your account and this harrowing story, fascinating, amazing story, as you share it, I can ask some questions as we go through as well, to just see if we can kind of
poke at it.
Yeah, piece together the framework, everything. And also, you mentioned this idea of poke at it. By the way, the thing that I want to some of the things I want to ask you about are, like you've mentioned yourself in the Jeff Mara interview, you mentioned the fact that you talk about the Gnosticism, the Archons, and the deception and all these things. So that's another thing. It's not exactly poking at your account by any means, but what I want to jointly question with you at certain cases is some things that maybe you're told or things like that. And I asked the same thing to Darius J. Wright when I interviewed him last week. It's like certain things that you're told. I have no doubt that you were told those things, but do you ever question, hey, wait, was this being
Yes.
told in truth or
Yes.
manipulation? So these are some of the things.
Yes.
But anyways, without further ado, I'm gonna turn it over to you. You guys gotta just pay attention, buckle up, and listen to what's going on here, because we're about to get a very, very, very fascinating, mind-blowing account of the nature of reality. Take it away.
I'm really excited for that conversation too. I'm really excited because I want to pull it apart, because I feel like the more we pull stuff apart, the more we know. And this is my account, but it's what I witnessed, it's what I participated in, but it's not the whole truth, right? It's just, and it's honestly what I remember. So we also have, I was with my ego, so it's my filter, right? And other people have been there too. So yeah, I really want to question it and see what's in there. I also want to tell you that this is not my first near-death experience. I had my first when I was 4, and that one was also bonkers. My family was hit by a drunk driver, and in that one, my guardian angels took me to the other side and told me that I was a seraphim angel. So, I say that when in the beginning, usually when I say this other near-death experience, because I think it has something to do with it, because when I had my first near death and I went over to the other realm, the seraphim realm, and they gave me that tour, they told me something about my identity. And they said, look, everybody on earth is from somewhere. You are your origin, you came from source, you are a seraphim angel, but that's not special. Yeah, I mean, you are special, but everybody's special. Everybody on earth is from somewhere. And look, this is what your spiritual DNA is made of. So first I saw that, and that's everything I knew. And I spent my life trying to figure out what that meant. And as I grew into my spirituality versus religion, well, then I questioned that my whole life. What does it mean? Why would I be an angel? And all my psychic gifts grew, and I pushed them away, and they came back, and all of that. Well, then, so now, this is, I'm an adult, and so much has happened since then. I'm in my late 40s. I had been drinking a lot, okay? And I had already overcome an opioid addiction that I had taken on after I had had a miscarriage, and I had been prescribed opioids for that, and they just lasted too long. And as a white woman, very easy to get from your doctors. Be careful about that. So I'd already overcome that, but by overcoming that, I kind of just replaced it with alcohol. And my excuse for that is that there's so much to feel on this earth. It felt so good to drink, and because I felt like I was out of my body. Well, I had heard a voice that I believe was source. I really do. And the voice had said to me, listen, if you keep drinking, you're going to be dead in 3 weeks. If you stop, you can create anything you want. Now, around that time, after that, and I don't know how long after, days maybe, I was laying in my bed next to my husband, not asleep, and laying on my side. And it was maybe 11 o'clock at night or something like that. I don't really remember, 11 o'clock at night or so. And I had this feeling of this lightning bolt feeling moving through my body, and this feeling of being picked up out of my body as if I was being pulled up like a backpack, and moving out of my bedroom, and being able to see my body, see me and my husband laying there. And all of a sudden I was way above my house. And then I was moving this way and then standing upright. And I looked and I saw another woman, and she saw me and I saw her. And then it was this feeling like, oh, I'm not supposed to be seeing this. I could feel her doing the same thing. This woman was looking in a computer, and the computer was assigned to my bedroom. She was watching me, and I knew that.
Can I ask a quick question? So this is one of the questions I had. So you're pulled out. Was it like you went through a warp or a wormhole, or was it was just like just instant? Okay.
I was just there. Yeah. It didn't feel like anything. It didn't look like anything. I was just there.
Got it.
Yeah, it had the same feeling of if you were to just back out of a doorway from one room to the other, it was as easy as that.
Mm. So it sounds interdimensional. It sounds like you're slipping from one dimension to the next.
Yes.
Okay.
And I didn't feel like I was in a body, but I also didn't notice that I wasn't, if I was or wasn't in a body. I was just looking at my eyes.
Okay.
But what I remember was I was my same height.
Got it.
But at this time, I didn't look down and see a body or anything, but I was clearly my same height. But yeah, it was so easy and it was fast. It was fast. This was just a second. There were other people in this control room. This was like shaped like this giant control room, and all these other people, men and women, also had these computers. These computers looked like they were both from the 60s and also very modern, and they were all looking at people as well. I'm pretty sure that the man next to her was looking at my husband's information. Here's what I have thought about since then. I wonder if that woman was me. If she was also like an extension of me or something. I really don't know. I didn't talk to her. I wonder if she was part of my higher self. I have no idea.
Okay.
I have tried to talk to her since then. I've tried to be like, hey, Matrix workers, hey, watchers. No connection. I haven't been able to connect to them. So I don't know if it's me or what. I don't know. But above this room, there was a balcony, and there were higher beings, taller beings watching. I noticed them, and they felt fine. They felt fine, not scary at all. Then, if I remember correctly, looking out, this was a very cosmic looking screen. I can see other people in the world. That part's getting fuzzy to me, but it was a big screen looking out. And they were looking at people all over the world. A man came in and he said, "We've been expecting you." It's brought me chills. And he said, "Don't touch anything." That's a me thing because I touch everything. I'm a hands-on learner. Touch everything. Don't touch everything. Then he took me behind everybody who was sitting in these computers. We went behind them and he took me to an elevator. This elevator went down fast, and I feel like we went forever. Then we went through these big doors, went in the elevator, went down, and when we stopped, it opened up to this room, and there were other people there, other humans, and they were dressed in regular clothes. Some of them were in pajamas, and they were already talking to each other. And some of them were saying like, "Oh, I'm from Denver. I'm from California. I'm from Japan." And then someone in there said, I heard someone say, "You can ask questions later." There was a theme about that. You can ask questions later. And then somebody came in who was male. This was a humanoid. And I knew that word humanoid. It's not a word that's in my vocabulary, but I knew it. It was humanoid. And I couldn't tell actually if the people in the room knew that this was a humanoid or not, but I knew. I could see at the back of its neck, it was kind of like weird hairs, but they were wires. And this humanoid said to them, "We're going to go into this next room, get in a line, we're going to go in this next room. And again, you can ask questions later." So these people were saying like, "I don't know how I got here. I was asleep and then I woke up and I was here." They were saying things like that. I have no idea how I got here. And then this first room was plain. It was very clean. It also had a balcony around it where there were beings watching, not as many as in the first room, but there were beings up there. And then there were chairs in this orientation room. The carpet was very, very soft. And then there was like a sound quality in this room that was, I don't know that I could hear it, but I could feel it. And it was like a vibration. It was womb-like. It was a pulsing, and it was nice. I didn't want to leave that. It felt very, very nice.
Was it like the most blissful feeling you've ever felt, or just like not like just
Calm.
pleasant? Okay.
pleasant.
And also the people that you're around at this point, are they dressed in clothes? Are they, you know what I mean? What did they look like?
So one man was in like construction clothes, like he had been at work. Another person, she was in her like fuzzy pajamas, SpongeBob, literally SpongeBob pajamas. Another lady was in silky pajamas. A lot of people were in pajamas. One lady was in like a pencil skirt and a cute top, kind of like this one, but plain blue. And just various things like that. Lots of jeans and t-shirts, just casual stuff. Then there was someone that was in, is it a hijab?
Oh yeah.
All over the world. They're from all over the world. And then they all looked current. I noticed, because I like geek out about past life stuff, I wanted to see, okay, are these all from this time period? Yes, everyone was current. And here's what I'm asking myself right now. I want to remember if I noticed if they all looked young at this point, and they did. They all looked young at this point. They were not different ages. They all looked like they were about 25 or 30. That's significant for later. This did not feel scary. I didn't notice that then, but I asked myself about this later, like, why didn't this feel scary? Why didn't I wake up and feel like this was a nightmare? It didn't. And maybe that was the sound that they were emanating. It was a vibration that helped us feel calm. Like it was very womb-like. And so this felt like we were all, I was witnessing this, but it felt like they were starting an orientation process. Did not feel like a punishment, really didn't. Now, I did see some of these people start to freak out a little bit, because somebody was saying like, how long are we going to be here? I have a project due. My kids are about to wake up. Am I dead? Somebody said, am I dead? Am I dead? Brilliant question. The humanoid said, your questions will be answered later. That's all this humanoid said. Your questions will be answered later. Stay calm. There were two people there, one lady and one man especially, that stood up, and they were just part of the group. But it's like they acted like they'd been there before, I noticed. And then they said to the group, like kind of on the sly, you got to be quiet or we're going to have to do all this over again. I noticed that. And then the man who said it, he was like, kind of reminded me of like a guidance counselor. He was just wearing khakis and like a polo shirt, and it had something on it. And I don't know what that said, but I feel like it had a lumber company on it, because I remember looking at it and wondering, does he work here? And it was a different emblem. It's like Pittsburgh or something. So I know when he said that he didn't work there, but I was like, how does he know that? Okay. Then they moved everybody into a next space. I noticed at this time that it was all the same people, but they had on different clothes. There was not time that I noticed where they would have been shuffled into dressing rooms and changed clothes, unless this was a dream, and dreams skip. That's possible, right? I could be dreaming. But I noticed that all of a sudden they had on matching clothes. The clothes were soft, like matching tracksuits. They were soft. These people didn't say anything like, where'd my clothes go? That was weird. I didn't think to look down at myself to see what I had on. I was just looking out of my eyes, but they had same people, different clothes. Now we were also walking around I was giving a tour, following them as they were being oriented into a residential area. They were being shown, this is where you're going to stay. It was residential, but very sterile. I would say even clinical. When I looked into one of the like small apartments, it looked like people were staying there, maybe 4 in a place. And there was a sink, a toilet, a window. The window was digital. And everything in there was metal. you'd think it's like a prison, but it didn't feel that way. So the bed was metal, but on top there was a beautiful mattress, beautiful sheets. The sheets were like linen, but very soft. And there was a scent there that I've never smelled here before. The only thing I can liken it to would be like fresh laundry, but it's not quite that. They were talking to them about, when they gathered the group back together, this humanoid said, there is work involved here, and the work is taking care of the surroundings. You don't work here long. It's just a couple of hours. He said 3 hours per day, and you'll all be assigned something that matches your aptitude. So if you are a plumber, if you enjoy that, and that is your, I don't remember the word he used, but in my brain it says wheelhouse, you'll be assigned to that. If you are an electrician, that kind of idea, if you enjoy cooking. And that is just to maintain this place. And then you'll be going to classes. At this point, I was shown an example of the class with everybody else. And the classes are about, like, they were weird. They were like asking questions about, like, what do you remember about first grade? What do you remember about your grandmother? And then some of them were even higher level questions like, what's the meaning of love? What do you think is real? Like, that question was like strange. What do you think is real? And then someone in the group asked, are there right or wrong answers? And the humanoid said, no right or wrong answers. We want to know what you remember. Not what you know, what you remember.
Rachel,
yes,
I'm so sorry. Can I jump in? Because I have, this is, okay. Here's my question. Because have you heard of somebody named Insights with Tony, a YouTube channel? Okay. So he's a guy that has OBE accounts. And I was thinking this when I first heard your video, but now I'm really thinking this. I want to know your thoughts. So you're in this original control room, then you kind of transport somewhere else. And it's what you're describing with almost like an apartment complex, sort of like a prison, but not really a prison, more like housing units.
Yeah.
And you're talking about linen and people changing clothes, but obviously, again, we're in it sounds like you're in the astral. You don't necessarily need to sleep. You don't necessarily need to eat, but everything is set up very similar to the world that we're accustomed to here. And it sounds like there's even a focus of thinking or focusing on the world here. What Tony described this place as, or what his speculation potentially was, is that, I think he called it Focus 21, but he said this might be an intermediary place where they take either souls, maybe like what you're experiencing as an NDE, or souls that have just, their physical body has just died and they're there. He thinks that maybe this is a holding area to kind of condition people and prepare people to come back and reincarnate again. That's why everything is so similar to life here. Do you think that's a possibility, that that's exactly what you were seeing?
Oh, I think anything's a possibility. Absolutely. Because what I was shown there is that as people participate in these classes that felt very much like therapy, they would graduate into other residential areas, and each residential area was more comfortable. And then their experience there, they were there for longer, and they would grow in relationships to their small community there. And there were even people that had fallen in love there. There were no children there, but they were building community systems there. They had best friendships. They were in love. And then their work that they chose to do, they were committed to it. I mean, if they were gardening there, because at some level, then you had access to the outside. And this, when you have access to the outside, it wasn't a merit system. It wasn't a reward. It was kept from you in the beginning because they didn't want to freak you out. They didn't want to overwhelm you. So as you understood more about that, they called it Sol Exile 13, SOL Exile 13, not SOUL.
Oh, I didn't know that.
SOL. Yeah,
What's the significance in the spelling difference, do you think?
I don't know. I will channel in a minute and ask.
Sol Exile.
Let's see who I could ask about that. Can I ask a galactic about? Because it gets energy from the solar system. It's
Okay.
powered from the solar system.
Hmm.
So as people lived there, they really became rooted there, and that was their experience. And they said that where they came from, Earth, this was the hologram. That this was Earth, where we are right now, where you and I are talking. This is completely projected. It's real to us. We're not making it up. It's real that collectively, excuse me, this always makes my nose run. So weird. We are collectively creating it with our thoughts and actions. It's not some, I've heard my angels say this too, it's not some sweaty mystical teenager creating us on a game board. No, it's all of us. We're creating it because that's why Earth exists. We come here to learn. And also there is another place where the physicality of us or the highest vibration of us, either one of those, it could be our actual physical matter body, if that matters, or our highest vibration, it exists. Maybe it's Sol Exile 13, maybe not. Maybe it's purely with source. Maybe I just saw a version of where we vibrate someplace else. Right. But what I saw was clearly a bunch of people who are housed somewhere while a projection of them is here.
Got it.
And they woke up early somehow, and they were being reoriented so that they could make a choice. Do they want to still stay here on Earth, or do they want to be on Sol Exile 13? Because that's what I saw. And I also was given the choice at the end. Do I want to stay or do I want to come back?
Yeah, that makes sense to me, what you're saying, a reoriented, because that's what it feels like when you describe that. And so sorry, I didn't mean to, I hope I didn't throw you off track there.
No,
if you could pick up where you left off, that'd be great.
So, so as people would go to these classes and be asked these questions, I don't know who the decision makers are. I don't know if they were elders or what, or if they were like the therapists that would decide, okay, this person is ready to go on to the next level. I don't know about that part, but clearly people were going into or moving into more residential spaces. And I saw one that was just gorgeous. It reminded me of like a place in Colorado where you'd go for like a ski lodge or something. It was just gorgeous. And they even had a TV on, and I just chuckled because they had some of the same programs that we have on Earth. And I was why would that be? Why would they want that? But it was just funny that it was on. And then I noticed that the food there was very colorful and crisp. I got to physically eat a bite. And that's the first time I noticed my physical body, honestly. And I had a bite of an apple, and it was so crisp that it was almost musical. And they said that the frequency, the vibration, the frequency of people there is so high normally that that's their baseline. And they kind of used my language. They said, think of it like, Rachel, your love frequency is like a hummingbird. Everyone here is like that. That's their base frequency. So the food matches that, and they don't need a lot. We don't need a lot. We eat for pleasure here. And that's one of the goals of Earth, is to remember the main frequency is not just neutral, but it's love. So when bad shit happens, pardon my language, you can experience that and notice it, but also retain your baseline frequency of love. So when you're here, you're always in your baseline frequency, and it's loving. So we don't really need to eat that much. And when we do eat, it's beautiful food. So I got to see that. And then I had a chance to talk to a woman there who said, I remember my husband, who I love, on Earth. And I said, well, I don't understand. I don't understand what you're saying to me. You're here and you're also on Earth. And I was kind of getting confused about, like, I saw my body and yet I'm walking around here, and it was starting to not make sense to me. And so this guide that was with me said, okay, I'm going to show you the next space. I think you're ready. So this is when he took me back to the elevator. And I want to see if we went to the elevator, and it's like we went down and forward. It was a weird motion. And I don't know if that matters, but I want to say it out loud for anybody else who's experienced this, because I think they'll remember. We went in and kind of forward. And when it opened up, we opened up into this enormous room that felt like it was impossible that it could be anywhere because it was so big. And I couldn't figure out how they could fit this room anywhere because it seemed like it was its own dimension, honestly. No ceiling, no walls, but stacked on top of each other were these pods. And the pods seemed to be glass, capsule shaped, and they had people in them. The people were I remember them to be naked, but when I have gone back in meditation, I saw them wearing like white underwear and a white undershirt. So I might remember it wrong, but when I've gone back in meditation, that's what I saw. Now, when I was there were people walking around who were monitoring these pods. And then the row of pods would then shift, and then the next row would be monitored. So these people would walk around and with a clipboard and make sure that the levels of, because these bodies were in some sort of water, clear water.
And were the bodies like lying down, or were they standing up?
Standing up. Standing up. And then sometimes the arms were like floating, and sometimes the arms were like up above. They were just there. And sometimes the eyes were open, sometimes the eyes were shut, and that was weird. Yeah. And then when the eyes were open, you could see the eyes looking around. Oh. Like they were in REM sleep.
What percentage would you say of the eyes were open and moving around?
Oh.
Like a small percent, or?
I don't know.
Okay.
Let me see if I can go back. So I'm going to look in my blueprint here and see if I can access that file. Angel on my right side, can you take me back into that memory file? This will just take me a minute and my face is going to go funny. So I'm just looking at that first row, and if there are 1,000 in that first row, I can only count, I can really only stand in front of 20. And I'm counting 1, 2, 5 of them, 6 have their eyes open.
Okay. Conscious or in some sort of sleep state?
Sleep state.
Okay.
None of them are conscious. None of these beings are conscious, except, the ones with the clipboards. But all the beings in pods, they're all humans. All the humans in pods. I'm being corrected, actually. They're not all humans. They're in human bodies, but they're from different planets. Just like I said in the beginning, when I had my first NDE and the angel said, look, you're special, honey, but everybody on Earth is from somewhere. So even though all these pods were presenting in human form, what's inside of us, they could be Pleiadian, they could be Lemurian, could be angelic, but they were in a human body with boobs and penises, right? But that was their avatar form. But what I'm being told is, even though we all come from source, we all have different lineages. But I hope that answers your question.
Yes.
And then I'm also being told by, who is this speaking to me? Archangel Gabriel, that there's really nothing behind it. It's just how some bodies work. So when some people are in that's weird. He's calling it like catatosis. catatosis. I don't know that word. Catatosis. That feels made up, guys. That some people's eyes just open, and that the fluid that they're in mimics ambionic fluid.
Okay. Yep. In the when you're in the womb, it sounds like catatonic when he says
Yeah, right.
right? Reminds me of that
Right.
word.
And then so there are several people in. I feel like I remember them in white coats, but my ego might be making that up. So I'm just going to let somebody else who's been there kind of fill that in. But as they were taking care of these people, and it felt very prayerful, because they put their hand at the glass and not just look at like the numbers of them, but also, I mean, it was loving. It was loving. And then the whole row would rotate at once, and then they do the same thing. And there were so many workers there. And I got the feeling that there were workers assigned to just a few of these pods. So if you were a worker, you had the same 100 pods that you looked after. And I just got chills. That's my yes. So I was scared at this point. How do you, even though it felt like I could see it was loving, like, come on, I'm seeing bodies in pods. This is like horror movie stuff. So I'm starting to question, like, what am I seeing here? Is this a trick? And maybe it is. Maybe this is the manipulation you're speaking of. Maybe. But what I was told was everybody that I saw on Sol Exile 13, they are not in a pod. Their physical bodies are walking around. You met them, you saw them. But everybody on Earth, their bodies are in a pod. Everybody on Earth, currently, they're in a pod. Now, that doesn't mean that they're all on Sol Exile 13. They could be someplace else. They could be existing in a dimension someplace else. But they said that everybody on Earth right now, this is all a hologram, and their physical being is well taken care of in this stasis, this place of stasis. And that they told me, this guide told me, that this is not a prison. It's something we chose because Earth blew up. It's no longer habitable. And there are other places that we can go. So there is an option to wake up and have an incarnation on a different planet, if one believes something like that. So, we're not locked into this experience, but one can have a physical experience someplace else. But these humans that I was seeing, their story right now is that they are having an Earth experience, a very real experience, but it's holographic. It's haptic feedback. So when they want to sit their butt on a chair, they feel it right as they're sitting down. They're creating the world as they want it. And that's as drastic as your house isn't there until you pull up to it. I mean, we are literally creating. And that sometimes people are waking up now early because we are becoming enlightened. And there are structures that are part of that matrix we chose that have become corrupted, as things do, simply because the original framework that we created, that was to help us make sense of big things like source is love, which that structure, let's look at that as religion. Well, what if religion was created to help us make sense of something so big as source is love, but within that structure, it started to oppress people. And so people are waking up to, I don't want that anymore. And that desire of, I don't want that anymore, is also waking up your physical body in the pod. So it wakes up your vibrational body that feels physical here. So when enough people are waking up, they create an orientation. And then when you wake up over there on Sol Exile 13 and you are reoriented, they give you a chance, after you know what the deal is, after you've had a chance to reorient yourself and see what your life could be like on Sol Exile 13. They say, okay, now here's your choice. You can either go back to your Earth life or you can stay here. But if you choose to stay on Sol Exile 13, it's final. You cannot go back. I asked the question, okay, if I stay here, well, am I dead on Earth? Because I have kids. I'm in love with my husband. Like, what happens there? This is the reason why I came back. They said you would have an avatar version of you, like a fractal version of you. All of your memories, all of your thoughts would be downloaded into the version of you that's right now sleeping in bed, that body. And it's likely that no one would know the difference unless they are spiritual. Your animals would know. Any intuitive children would know. And I was like, my family is going to know. They're all weird. They're all spiritual people. I lead a spiritual life. People are going to know. And I was also feeling that I didn't want to do that. I thought my kids can do this without me, but I want to be there. So I chose to come back. So as soon as I walked back into my pod that was empty, it had no water or whatever that fluid was in it. There were 2 buttons. First button, they said, you've got to, as soon as the door closes, and it was like, I'm standing on a platform, no glass, but when I stood there, it's like the glass rotated and I was encapsulated. As soon as it starts to fill with water, it's like this waterfall behind you, and then it starts to fill up from the bottom up. You hit the button so you don't drown. And then the second button is your choice to remember or forget your experience. And I chose to remember.
Did they try to convince you to pick the forget button, or was there any discussion about that? No.
No.
Okay.
No.
When you're down, so I think one of the things you mentioned is that perhaps this projection or this creation that may have been hijacked, but we can get to the hijacking in a moment.
Yeah.
The purpose of creating, I guess, this realm that we're in right now, this simulation, is to remember what source is. I think you said something along those lines. So
Yeah, for sure.
Where do you get that idea, or where, how did you learn that information?
So I learned that information in my first NDE.
Okay.
In my first NDE, I went there as a 4-year-old, but I was also hearing this grown-up voice. And I asked the angels, who is that? And they're like, that's you. That's your consciousness. And they integrated my grown-up self, which helped me remember that NDE specifically all these years. It's why I remember it, even though I was 4. And when they gave me a tour of the seraphim realm, they told me what my mission was as an angel. And they said, your mission as an angel is to help people remember that they are connected to source and that there's no separation from source, not the religious God, not the man-made God. Nothing wrong with that. It's a loving God, but we're talking about the energy God where we all popped out of. And so they said that it's every angel's mission to help people remember that, because it's everyone's mission to remember that they're not separate from where they came from.
So can we talk about this in relation to the memory wipe that we all, I think,
Yes.
have understood is happening? Obviously, we come into this, like, if we expand our consciousness out, it's effectively infinite. Yet we obviously come in here with amnesia. We just know what we know from this life, for the most part. Some people have maybe crossed that chasm, but for the most part, that's what it is. So if we come to this idea that the point, maybe, I guess, of manifesting here is to remember, does that give you ever a moment to pause and say, well, if the point is to remember, yet we're being forcefully kind of memory wiped, does that sound a little fishy? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So here's what I've gotten about that in my years of asking and being pissed about it, honestly. There are two big reasons why that happens. Because it's not in our original structure to forget.
Okay.
Number one, we come here to Earth. We constructed this place as a playground, as a learning place. And initially, because there's so many other places we could incarnate, but this is the place that has low frequency, the bad shit that we can learn from. So we are well-rounded souls. And we could even go a step further. When we learn, we are uploading that back to source. And source is still expanding. We are expanding, source is expanding. And I'll tell you from an angelic perspective as a seraphim, in our original creation, we're not supposed to forget anything. Our curriculum is cumulative. We learn, we remember it, we graduate. So what seemed to get in the way of that is we created this earth so well that when we created systems like school, money, hospitals, those systems that we rely on so much, one of the systems we created was unworthiness. We created merit-based love. And part of that inherent system, that belief system, we taught each other that when you die, you have to start over again. You have to earn it all again. And we started to believe that so much that we built it into the process. We built it into reincarnation. And because source, now religious God is a decision-making God, but source is not. Source is an energy God who fully understands free will. So source is going to interject and say, hey guys, rewrite that. That's not what we intended. No, source is energy and pure love. So source is like, okay, source is the dude. Source is the big Lebowski. Let's see how this plays out. So what we're doing right now, collectively, we are rewriting that because we're all starting to remember or desiring to remember incarnation to incarnation, because we are remembering, oh, that's not what was in our original curriculum. We're not supposed to forget every time. So it is coming full circle. But see, we did that to ourselves. We're our worst enemy. We started to overmanage so much that we made ourselves forget.
So your thoughts are basically with what's, let's say we perceive, I know you've talked about Archons before in your other interview as well. Let's say whatever we perceive the Archons to be, entities or that are basically the ones that are processing this memory wipe. Are you kind of saying that that's almost just an extension of ourselves?
That's second. Yeah.
Oh.
Let me get to that.
Okay.
So the first thing is we did it. First thing is we did it by just doing our job and being great co-teachers for each other. And we overdid it. We're over managers as humans. That's one thing. And we are rewriting that curriculum so we don't forget. And we're going to see it as kids are born, but they're going to remember their past lives. We're seeing that already. So number one, it's fixing itself. Now, number two, outside influences. We have outside influences, and I'm going to say this with as much bravery as I can, because this is when people are going to perk their ears up and say, whoa, is she okay? But I know this to be true because I work with them. So we have outside influencers who know the power of the human race. They know how smart we are. They know that our energy is a resource. And we're talking about like the world order. We're talking about reptilians. We're talking about the Archons that work for the reptilians. So if we were to know our true autonomy, if we were to really embrace our connection to source, if we remembered our power, we would not be able to be controlled. So there is a business model in place, an actual business model where people die and then they are shown the light after they die and all the things that's shown in religion so that they walk right into it and get put back into the reincarnation trap and start over. That is a business model. Why? Because if we're here in the matrix over and over and we are both experiencing ecstasy and joy and fear and struggle, that creates an energy substance called loosh, and it's delicious to some outside entities. But as the structures I mentioned are starting to fall because we're all waking up, those outside entities can no longer use us for that. So both of the things that I mentioned, we overwrote our curriculum, but we're waking up.
Mhm.
That part is actually ejecting the outside forces that have been able to control us for so long because we're waking up. So they're beginning to go off planet. They're beginning to take themselves out of the structures that we built, that they started to infest themselves in, like government, medicine, pharmaceuticals, schools, our minds. They're starting to take themselves out. So what we're beginning to see is that even before we die, we are starting to know that in our hearts, we already have everything that we need. We are connected to source. So whatever we're shown when we die, no matter what we're tempted, even if they say, oh, look, your grandma's here, we get to say, I love that, but I have everything I need. So when I was in Sol Exile 13, they were asking questions like, what do you think is the meaning of life? Love, that I have everything I need. I don't have to go to Target anymore to fill my closet. I can like that, but I don't love it. LUV versus LOVE. There were lots of conversations like that because we're getting back into source love versus immature love. So we have both elements of, what got in the way of our memory. Why are we not remembering from lifetime to lifetime? Well, we're starting to remember again because the outside forces are losing their power and we are rewriting our curriculum as people.
Now, when you talk about the outside sources, so when you say outside sources, do you mean, because this is what I was trying to get my head around too in your Jeff Mara interview. So do you mean outside of the base reality, I think what you're calling Sol Exile 13, off that planet, or
Yeah.
they're from another area and then are they like hacking into this virtual
Yes.
simulation? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So they're hacking into the virtual simulation and then hijacking it effectively is what your take is. And then
Yes.
so the Intuitive Underground has made a statement that in some of their remote viewing experiences and some of the data that they've collected, they're saying they're talking about the same thing that you're talking about, the loosh, the energy that is being harvested, or they call it soul power. Actually, they have a different term for it, but same idea. But they say that they believe that the soul power or the loosh is actually being used to power the simulation itself. And it is true also. Okay.
Yes, true.
So, and is that a nefarious harvesting, or is that a harvesting that we agreed to?
We agreed to, right?
Okay.
That's like gas for our car. But that same gas for our car, someone could come in the middle of the night and siphon it out. We're stopping the siphoning.
I see. And then let me ask a couple other questions too, because so then I think effectively what you're saying is then this virtual simulation was then created as a playground, potentially a positive place for us to learn. We weren't supposed to have the memory wipe. That got implemented potentially after the fact. What about this is something that I've been diving into a lot lately as well, is just the nature of this world. Let's just take the most basic example. If you extract away all the negative government systems, the people that lie and deceive, forget about even all of that, but just the core building blocks of this realm, which is the food chain, that we're kind of forced into this, and not just us, but animals as well. We're forced into this repetitive cycle of destruction and consumption to just live another day. That seems inherently flawed in a way, just because of the balance of pain to pleasure. It just seems so out of whack. Was this virtual simulation always meant to be like that, or is that's okay? So that's a perversion of what was originally designed.
Yes, because we are vibrational beings. We believe our existence to be physical so much that we've made it physical.
Okay.
So what one of our goals is, when I look at this from a teacher perspective, and I look at this using so I'm going to look at the Earth hologram here, and I look at what was originally written by all of us. We knew that we were creating a physical space, proton, electrons, all of that beautiful stuff. but we were not supposed to forget that we were vibrational. One of our shared purposes is to come here and play with energy. So we wanted to have one end of the spectrum with energy being very heavy, so we could alchemize it back into something that's like movable. We could throw it around like a hacky sack. Well, when we started to forget our abilities, only this existed. So we started to have to match our bodies to it so we could survive. And so not only did we have to fill our bodies with something heavy, but we had to do heavy things to match it, like kill. And as we rewrite our history and how we exist, we won't be hungry for low vibrational things in our body anymore. We just won't want it anymore. So we're going to start to see an evolution of that. Some people in the spiritual community call it the 5D or going into the crystalline body. It doesn't matter what we call it. It doesn't matter. It's just going to be a movement into people needing less food, desiring different food for their body, and also engaging in a different relationship with water. Water herself is remembering who she is, because, we think about people forgetting who we are. The trees have forgotten. Water's forgotten. It's not just us on this planet. The inanimate objects weren't always inanimate. I'm not a big Bible person, even though I'm a preacher, but there's a part in the Bible that says that the rocks will come back alive. That's in there for a reason, because they have their own consciousness. We're all waking up again. And so it will affect how we get our food, how we eat our food. And that's actually, I'm speaking in the future, but it's happening now. And it'll happen to everyone to the degree that they're ready. So we're watching it play out, honestly.
What do you think is, and maybe there is no answer to this, but what do you think is or should be our ultimate goal? Should it be to wake up and then keep coming back? Should it be to wake up in base reality and exit the pod? What do you think?
Gosh. Wow, I feel like I'm not the person to ask about that. I feel like that's for everyone to answer for themselves. But let me ask someone higher than me for that. I'm going to pull in a council for that of Buddha, Muhammad, Jesus. I'm going to call in a council. And then when I pull them in, I'm going to ask you to pose that question again. So I have that vibrating. And I have Saint Germain here. He's so funny. Wow. And I even have Archangel Lucifer here. Interesting. Wow. And Zeus. Some interesting people at the table today. Would you mind re-speaking that question for me?
What is our ultimate goal, if there is one? And maybe it's individual to each person, but are we meant to keep coming back and eventually fix the simulation so that it goes back to being a playground? Or ultimately, are we meant to wake back up in base reality and exit the pod and then move on into a new plane of existence?
Mm-hmm. Who is my speaker today? Saint Germain. Saint Germain, thank you. Nice to see you. And may I ask, is this the opinion that you're sharing of the group, or is this something that you are reading from something ancient? This is the way. This is the way. Thank you. Very good. This is channeled directly from source information. Thank you. The answer is we are moving back to the original data of source. And this is not the first time. This is a full circle. What we do not remember in our human minds is that we do this. We play this way. We play that we have forgotten, and then we remember and we laugh and we do it again, like a toddler who builds a tower and knocks it down. We are so serious here. what is different about this time is it hasn't happened often, and we often give up. This is a different time. The goal is not to get to base reality and live there. It is to keep evolving and reunite source with source, and to remember that everything embodied, no matter where one or it resonates in the dimensional field, it is source. And remembering that it is source and going back to that, and they just showed me like a firework, source. And when that moment happens, it will all start again.
It will, what will all start again?
What will all start again? The process will start again. And this time, when it starts again, it will not feel a burden. It will not feel a punishment. All will remember, and it will be the next iteration of the galaxy.
Is it fair to say maybe this is one of the fundamental misconceptions about source, that we think omniscient, omnipotent, etc.? Maybe that's a incorrect assumption, because perhaps if we are source, we're fragments of source, but ultimately we are source. And maybe the reality is source is the source, but it may not know everything, and hence
You're right.
us going out. So that is, so us learning is actually source learning.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's what they're saying. Source is still expanding. Source is growing.
I have another question too. So when you often reach out to archangels or other entities
all
that
the time. Yeah.
Do you ever wonder, because I know, because it's interesting, because I think other folks that do channeling may not necessarily talk about archons or acknowledge these potential negative forces, but you do. So I have a question, like, do you ever worry that, hey, sometimes these feeds are getting hijacked per se, or,
Sure.
Yeah,
sure. But I know the archons, and I don't know them as evil. I just know them as they know their job. And they can hear me say this, so I'm sorry, but they're stupid. And they just, when I say stupid, I don't mean that they're emotionally stupid. I mean that they have their job description and they can't go outside of it.
okay.
So it wouldn't be like them to interfere, because they wouldn't know how. So
Okay.
the archons, I'm going to compare them to some of the archons. Personally, they're very intelligent beings, but they are not allowed to go outside of their job description. They would be punished. They simply cannot. Now, their higher level managers, they could, but there are galactic rules. Archons are simply gatekeepers, and they're just doing their job. They get a bad rap because of what they have to do, but it's also kind of the same as reptilians. They're like lions. They're hungry. They do what they need to do to take care of their race. Are there some evil ones? Yeah, honestly. Are there some archons that have probably gone rogue? Yeah. But archons in general, I mean, I know their vibration just like I know the color orange. If I was painting my nails red and all of a sudden this one was orange, I would know it. So when I'm channeling and somebody's coming in and it's different, I mean, I would want to throw up. I know. And I've been doing this since I was born. That's not my ego speaking. And also, I have a specific guide who will start to touch my body or ring my ears or do something if I'm getting interference.
Okay.
And, I serve as an exorcist, so I know their tricks.
Have you had that happen before? You had to kick them out or something? Okay.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah. And also, I also want to say that I'm not infallible. It can happen.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm also a person, so I want to leave that open. And this is also my truth, which is just my truth. I never want to say that what I know is the absolute truth, and I don't ever want to push my beliefs on people or say this is the way the world works and that's what you got to know. That's not for me to say.
Sure. And I appreciate that. And I think, I mean, that ultimately, I think, should be the stance of anyone and everyone, because we can all be susceptible to it. And I ask these questions for the benefit, I think, of everybody, because we have to ask this stuff if we're going to try to, I think, get to the nature of reality. Because if you look around at this planet, it really step back and look around for a minute, which I think a lot of people don't do, just because they're in the humdrum of their life and things are surviving and just in survival mode. But when you really step back, you just see from the most granular examples of just TV advertisements and how people just lie. Like, there's lies everywhere. There's deception everywhere.
Yes.
And as people have said, as above, so below. So I wonder if this world is so replete with deception and lies, then what may be coming in. And I think ultimately, though, one thing that you touched upon, you didn't say this word, but I think you're alluding to it: discernment, right? Strengthening our discernment is effectively the key. But when people talk about, you mentioned the Archons are stupid, right? And, you know, when we talk about intelligence, I've been thinking about this a lot lately. We both work in education. I don't even like to say, oh, intelligent, not intelligent, this and that, because everybody has capabilities and capacities in different ways. But one of the, I think the truest, one of the most important things in this life that we should strive for, as opposed to factual knowledge or memorization of facts, really the most important thing I think that I keep coming back to is discernment, and having a strong ability to discern, which I think can be built and fortified. I think that might trump everything. And by the way, I've been going through some material lately talking about the law. I made a video talking about the law of resonance, the concept of phronesis, which is a Greek concept. But basically the main, and I want to get your thoughts on this, because obviously you have to be strong with discernment as you're channeling and relaying information and whatnot. But what I feel like what I'm inching closer and closer towards is this basic understanding that if we want to have strong discernment, we ourselves have to be kind of as clean as possible in terms of the way we live our lives, honesty with others, obviously, but also with ourselves and with our actions. What are your thoughts on this idea?
Absolutely. Be honest with yourself and be honest with, don't lie. And when you do lie, say, oh, I'm sorry, that wasn't honest, and forgive yourself. It's all about forgiveness and knowing that our culture is based on lies, and those lies are based on a culture that doesn't feel emotionally safe.
Okay.
Because we're not, we don't really give ourselves a chance to say, I did forget to buy mayonnaise. I'm sorry. It's more like, you dumbass. I asked you 3 times. That's something that we're healing. So we get to start first with our internal monologue. Are we being kind to ourselves? And if we're not, where did that voice come from? Was it a parent? Was it their parent? Where is that? Can you start to genuinely be okay with yourself first? How are you talking to yourself? Because we're carrying stuff for our ancestors, and the ancestors of our past lifetimes, it's really rooted in us. And so that self-kindness, self-love can be hard, but the self-kindness and the self-gentleness has got to come first.
This is what I wear, Pink Tourmaline. That's why that's the whole name of the channel, self-love. It's so funny. I've been wearing this for a long time. It's significant to me, but I feel like so much of what everybody says, that's a commonality. We just keep coming back to this idea.
And we don't hear it anymore because it feels like it's cliched, but it's so true. It's alchemy. And when I said earlier from the realm that one of our shared purposes is to work with energy, that's one of the energy alchemies, that it feels heavy, but when we can feel that energy of, I feel bad because I lied, or I feel bad because I failed, that's energy. And you can transmute it simply by seeing it as a color, or saying to yourself, yeah, I did F up, but that's okay. I'm a person. It transmutes into something, and then it affects your room. It affects your money. It affects everything, because your whole field is different. Because remember, we're not here in a physical space. This is all vibration. Right. So it makes a difference. And then when you want to feel the difference between, is it you hearing from spirit or is it your ego? You can then say, okay, well, when did I feel an absolute yes in my body? When did I get a yes answer? Or when did I remember to do something or complete a project and that felt good in my body? That's a yes. That's a yes, good vibration. So then when you're channeling or you're in discernment and it feels neutral or safe or yes, that's what it feels like. And then if you're pushing your ego, if you're pushing your mind into it, or you're getting interference, that's going to feel like shame, a little bit of shame, or it's going to feel like hustle or managing or someone in your life that judged you. You're going to know that feeling too, but it's not you, it's external forces. And remember, those external forces, they're popping off the planet. They're losing their power. So we get to do that personally as we work with discernment and remember our intuition. But it's got to start with us first. It's self-kindness. And I want to hesitate and say not self-love because that's hard. Start with kindness. Okay. That's the way to growing our intuition or remembering our intuition. How are you talking to yourself? How do you feel about yourself? And yes, being as honest as you can, because being dishonest, that is a low vibration and you can't really work from it. And it also sends out this beacon to nefarious, it'll send out a beacon to like the reptilians, like, oh, they're open. I can mess with them.
Right. Really, that makes sense. Yeah. I just saw a video too about this expert on truth. I think it works for the FBI or something. Like I could be wrong about that, but it was really cool. And they showed this experiment where they said, okay, say something truthful, like I love fresh air. I love fresh air. And then push down the hand, nothing. She's like, try to fight my hand. And then she said, now say, I love the smell of vomit, right? Something that is a lie. Goes, I like the smell of vomit. Boom. And the hand drops down. And she's like, because one way to think about it is it's obviously confusing your brain because you have to focus on this deception, but you're sort of like splitting reality and you're confusing yourself. Another way to think about that is you're disrupting your natural resonance and weakening yourself. But yeah, I think there's something to that it makes you vulnerable. It makes you now potentially, you could fall victim to some sort of interference.
Absolutely. And that interference actually is right in the back of your neck. There's a doorway that opens up when you are, it's a spiritual doorway right in that hollow part of your neck that will open up.
Okay. Rachel, I gotta say, this has been incredible. What I feel like what a great conversation we had. This is exactly what I wanted. Obviously, for people that haven't seen your story, you got to tell it. And I hope people didn't think I interrupted too much, but I think we got to dig deeper on a lot of the questions that I had. And it was just perfect. It was exactly what I wanted. And I hope everybody feels the same way and they got a lot of value out of this. So I want to thank you so much for jumping on today. If people want to reach out and find you, and obviously I'll put this in the description as well, which I'll be posting this very shortly. But yeah, if people want to reach out to you or connect with you, how can they do that?
Well, if people enjoy meditating, if you speak my name in your mind or out loud, you can usually connect with me in the astral plane. If you can imagine that like grassy hill where Jesus sits and like chills out or smokes a joint with the kids, I'm there all the time, hanging out, but not on Friday nights. I take that night off. So you can join me there and we can have questions in the astral plane or conversations in the astral plane. Then if you want to connect in this realm, my website's easy. It's my name, rachelcorpus.com. I also have a show. I don't want this to sound like I'm like pushing like a show, but I do have this show Monday nights. And you can catch it by looking at my website, but I'm really passionate about it because it's a teaching format.
No, don't be shy. Share. I mean, this is the whole point. We're trying to get information out. We're trying to have discussion. So I say no.
Well, it's called Ask the Angel. So I mean, we talk about time travel and quantum physics and angels and stuff like that. So yeah, check it out on my website, and I'd love to invite everyone to it because it's fun. It's lighthearted and fun.
All right. Well, there you guys have it. Again, all that stuff will be in the description. You guys can connect that way through the website. Rachel, one more time, thank you. You gave so much of your time. I know we only booked it for an hour. We've gone more than an hour, so sorry about that. But the conversation was just too good. All right. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, guys. What did you think? Do you have more follow-up questions? Post them, and we will, or I'll definitely get back to you. Maybe I'll pass them along, some really good questions to Rachel if she, maybe wants to come back and we can have a follow-up. That'd be cool. No pressure, obviously, but
and
that's
you
all we
don't have
got.
to agree, right?
Right. That's right. 100%. Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. We just want discussion and dialogue. So let us know. Thank you everybody so much. And we'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.